Hello, my name is Kyle Artis, and I want to welcome you back to my channel entitled Family. Let's talk about money. Now, if you're new to the channel, let me explain to you how it works. I invite you to come sit at my dinner table, and we discuss things that will help you make better financial decisions. Now, I actually used to do this from my dinner table, but I actually realized that it's so much more easier to do from my office. But the premise is still the same. The idea is we start having these discussions at my dinner table, and then eventually you start having them at yours, until this becomes a commonplace in our community, us sitting around our dinner tables discussing finances. Now, everybody's invited to the table, but I want to tell everybody up front that the primary discussion will be directed toward those in the Black community, my community. And this is because people of other communities have been having these discussions around their dinner tables for decades, but that's not the case with us, and we want to change that. So first, we want to realize that there are reasons why we have not had these discussions around our dinner tables in our community. And the main reason is we have not had generational wealth that has been passed down so that we talk about building wealth. And there's reasons for that. One of the big reasons is that the United States government has had programs that have helped other communities build generational wealth, but yet we were left out of those programs. Let me give you an example of one. Are you familiar with the Homestead Act? Well, let me tell you how this worked. First, let me set the table a little bit of what was going on in the country at this time. It's early 1860s. The U.S. Congress had a group of Republicans that was pushing a very radical idea that was actually gaining momentum. The idea was that after 250 years, maybe it's time to end slavery and emancipate the slaves. Well, there was a problem. Because of being breeded like rabbits for over 250 years to keep that assembly line of free labor coming, well, blacks outnumbered whites in 7 southern states. So if they were to emancipate the slaves, actually make them citizens of the country and give them the rights to vote, well, then there could be issues. So the US government realized that they needed more white people in the country. And so they had to come up with a way to entice European whites to come to America. Well, that may seem like, well, that would not have been a very big issue, but things were very different at this time. Remember, this is the early 1860s. The Civil War is going on at this time, and also the United States did not have the best relationship with Europe. Remember, we were the ones that broke away from the British Empire, came to this country, formed our colonies, fought for our independence, fought a war, got our independence, and started a new country. So the relationship between the United States and Europe was not a good one. So the US Congress had to come up with something that would have to be pretty amazing to entice European whites to move to the United States. And actually what they came up with was the Homestead Act. And this was a pretty impressive piece of legislation that they came up with, because it was actually just a massive land giveaway. Let me explain how it worked. If a European white family came into the United States, they were given 160 acres of land. And their only stipulations were, 1, they had to live on that land, and 2, they had to work and improve the land. And if they did that, in 5 years, they were deeded that land free and clear. Now, it really did work, because over the next 60 years, over 1.5 million families came to the United States and received 246 million acres of land for free. Now that was 1862. In 1863, they signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which ended slavery. Now, it actually took a couple more years before the slaves were actually freed. But these newly freed slaves, were they able to take part in this Homestead Act and receive the 160 acres? No. But they did set aside a special program for the newly freed slaves, and it was called Special Field Order number 15, or what is more commonly known as 40 acres and a mule. The idea was that the newly freed slaves would be given 40 acres of land to call their own and work. It was actually going to be a form of reparations. But yet we know that that didn't happen. And this is because after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, new President Andrew Johnson, he came and basically shot it down because he was a strong supporter of the Southern white supremacy movement. And so after 250 years of free labor, the newly free slaves received nothing. No money, no land, they didn't even get the mule. So nothing to pass on. And of course that led to another very difficult 80 years following that, with what was called slavery by a different name, which was indentured servitude, or what's more commonly known as sharecropping. We'll discuss that in more detail in another episode. But we can see that the Homestead Act was a serious wealth building opportunity for the new Americans, the new European whites coming into the country. In fact, the Homestead Act, it is estimated that up to 93 million Americans today are direct beneficiaries of this enormous wealth generating program. That's why these other communities have these discussions, because generational wealth has been passed down. But that is not the case with us. Our people have been in survival mode, came out of slavery and received nothing, and yet they survived. So now, since they survived, so we can thrive. You see, does racism still exist? Yes, nobody's going to argue that. But does that prevent us from home ownership, obtaining land? See, that's not the case anymore. So our forefathers did what they had to do to survive. But now we can actually thrive because things have changed. We make money. There are opportunities. And oftentimes we want to act like we're living in the time of our forefathers, and that's not the case. If you are not able to purchase a home today, it's not because of slavery. It's because you got a 400 credit score. You see, it's because you spend every dollar you get, so you have nothing in savings to put for a down payment to purchase a home. See, it's not racism that you can't buy a home because you got $70,000 worth of college loan debt and you're working a job that didn't even require a degree. See, that is the reason we need to have these discussions around the dinner table and make better decisions when it comes to money. See, our mindset should be not today. We need to be thinking 3 generations. The decisions we make today should affect your children's children. And if that's our attitude, see, then that helps us to make better decisions. So let's talk about home ownership. Now, as we discussed, we see that more millionaires are made in real estate in this country than anything else. The reason is home ownership. Homes gain value. Property gains value. Our parents or your grandparents, they could be in homes that they purchased for $10,000, and depending on where you live, that home could be worth $1 million today. You see, it grows in value. Also, there are tax advantages, equity, And most importantly, it's something that you can pass on to your children. So home ownership is important. So let's talk about the first thing that we need to do if we want to purchase the home. First and foremost, we have to have good credit. What is your credit score? You see, everybody should know their credit score. Now, it used to be very difficult to know your credit score. In fact, you go back 20 years ago, and once a year, you were allowed to write a letter to the three credit bureaus, and they would send you back your credit information and your credit score. That's not the case anymore. You can find out your credit score in less than a minute. You can go online. There are things like Credit Karma, LifeLock, the different credit cards that you have. Now all these have your credit score and can tell you what to do to improve your credit. And so it's important that first, everyone should learn what their credit score is. Secondly, what do I need to improve my score? Now, videos like this. There's other videos out there that deal just with credit, clearing your credit, how to raise your credit score. And I've looked at many of these videos, and they can help. Also, go sit down and talk to your banker and say, look, this is my credit score. What do I need to do to raise it? And they will help you out. That is what they're there for. We shouldn't be embarrassed about these things. It's embarrassing to us because these are things we never did before. But people with money do these things all the time. I went in, let me give you my personal experience. Hey, I learned everything the hard way. I was paying for stuff in the 90s that I bought in the 80s. And I said, that's it, I'm done with credit. I worked hard to pay everything off. And what I did for the next 15 years, more than 15 years, I didn't have no credit. I didn't have any credit cards. I bought my cars cash. I paid everything on time. And I thought that I was doing great because I didn't know anybody nothing. Well, then I started thinking about purchasing a home, and transmission went out in my truck. So I thought, you know what? Let me take out a loan. Even though I had the money to fix it, I said, I'm gonna take out a small loan and start building my credit up because I was looking to buy a house within the next year or so. Well, when I went in to apply for this loan, the lady looked at me and was like, Mr. Artist, you don't have no credit rating at all. I said, that's right, because I don't owe nobody nothing. And I'm thinking this is a good thing. And a few days later, I get the letter and I'm turned down. And then I find out that no credit is worse than bad credit. So just what I told you to do, I did that. I went to my banker, I sat down, I explained the situation. I told him I thought I was doing good and then found out that I wasn't. And he kind of looked at me and laughed. And he's the one that told me, oh man, no credit is worse than bad credit. I said, okay, well, what do I need to do to build my credit up? I said, I'm wanting to buy a house. What do I need to do? He said, well, you need to realize it's going to take a little time. But first things first, he said, you need to get a secure credit card with a certain dollar amount, and you just need to use that card once a month, just to show that there's activity there. And that's what I did. I'd get a tank of gas, pay it off. Might go out to dinner, pay it off. Just enough to keep it going, but the balance was always paid. Did that for a while. They said I was eligible for another secure credit card. Did that. A few months later, you can get a regular credit card. I did that, doing everything the exact same way. And in about 2 years' time, I got my credit rating up over 700. And that should be the goal of everybody. What is your credit score? When you find out your credit score, you do these things to improve it, and your goal should be over 700. And then, so now for many years I had good credit, and my daughter, she got out of college and she was wanting to start building her credit. I found out that I could add her to my credit card. And by adding her to my credit card, she gets her own card with her name on it and all. And so she kind of gets to go off of my credit and build her own credit. And she did that for about less than a year. Hers went up over 700. She called me and said, "Dad, I'm gonna cancel your credit card because I'm gonna, just do my own thing." And I'm like, way to go. So if you have good credit, you can help your children out. But you gotta let them know that they gotta use that card. I'm signing this card over to you so you can build your credit, not so you can have a credit card. So the same thing works. One time a month, use that card, activity, pay it off. Showing an activity, paying off that balance every month. And by doing that, you can build your credit. There are different things you can do. And so it's so important that we learn these things. You see why we need to have these discussions around the dinner table? See, these are the things we need to talk about. So that's our discussion on getting your credit straight tonight. Now, also, I'm in the insurance business. My company is AIC, Artist Insurance Consultants. And this is something else that we as a community need to start taking more serious. We need to realize that Black people die at an alarming rate in this country. And that's whether it be from COVID, high blood pressure, diabetes, being gunned down by the police, or sad to say, us killing one another. But imagine that if every time someone in our community died, their family received a check for $200, $300, $500,000. What would that mean to that family? What would that mean to the community? You see, this happens all the time in other communities. And this is because life insurance is a part of their financial planning, and it should be a part of ours. And if we do this when we're young and healthy, it can be very inexpensive. As an example, you can take a healthy 20-year-old and cover them with $500,000 of insurance, and it will be less than $25. See, these are the things we need to start doing to doing that financial planning and making decisions that will not only benefit us, but our children's children. That's the point that we got to get in our minds, that what we're doing now, we're doing for our children's children. And so that is so important. And that's what I want to take just a few minutes to discuss today. I appreciate you joining me, and I'm looking forward to having further discussions on the channel here, Family, Let's Talk About Money, so that one day we're all sitting around them dinner tables having these discussions to help build our community. So you have a good day, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.